This is the Horse Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Wood.
And I'm Jennifer Connor from Equestrian Businesswomen, and you're listening to Equestrian B2B, the podcast that brings together industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and equestrians for conversations about how they build and sustain a successful business. On today's show, we are talking to two women who have become experts and leaders in what is traditionally a male-dominated field in the equestrian industry. What does it take to make it? What are the hardest parts? And who did they look up to on their way to the top?
Marina Acevedo was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and has graduate and postgraduate degrees in education. She is currently head of an international school in Campinas, Brazil as her principal job, but is also known as the only female FEI Level 4 course designer in the world. Marina's other passion is horses. Growing up on her family's farm, she was surrounded by animals and nature and learned how to ride, taking jumping lessons at the age of 10 and heading to Europe at age 17, where she rode with legendary show jumper Nelson Pessoa. She returned to Brazil when she was 28 and started training young riders, but after her son was born, she made a career change to course designing. After years of hands-on training and following the FEI pathway to be an international course designer, which consisted of attending seminars, assisting other course designers, and building at several prestigious events, such as the Chio Aachen, Pan American Games, World Cup Finals, World Equestrian Games, and the Olympic Games, Marina was promoted to FEI Level 4 in 2020. Along with her main job at the school, she continues to build around the world in South America, North America, and Europe.
Maggie Wolfendale-Morley is a third-generation horsewoman who grew up in the world of horse racing. Upon graduating from Towson University with a degree in public relations and broadcasting, she worked as an on-air analyst for the Maryland Jockey Club, Colonial Downs, and in her current role at the New York Racing Association, where she has been for over 10 years. Maggie currently serves as a host and the paddock analyst for the NYRA-produced show America's Day at the Races for Fox Sports. She also stays very hands-on with the horses, serving as an assistant and exercise rider for her husband, Tom Morley, and she has retired and retrained several of her father's and husband's former runners. Producing the podcast Off the Track about off-track thoroughbreds on In the Money Media is a passion project for Maggie, as she gets to share the stories of the people who have given former racehorses a life and a career away from the track. So I wanted to start off with Maggie, and if you could tell me how you got interested in your field and kind of like the story, who influenced you and how you got going, both in the thoroughbred industry and then again in commentary.
So I was one of those fortunate people to be born into the racing industry. My dad, a trainer, and my mom always in the barn with him as well. And she was an equestrian too. So obviously I grew up showing first my pony, who was just an absolute saint. And I got very lucky in that respect. And then by taking horses that my dad had trained off the track and retraining them in different disciplines. So yes, horses have always been a part of my life. There wasn't a time that I wasn't around horses. So that obviously came pretty naturally. And then it's funny. So going to the track, I actually learned to read by reading the form and the horses' names. And so I'd watch, actually, the lady who was on in Maryland at the time was Kimber Goodwin. And so I grew up watching her, and obviously on the national broadcast, there was Charles Lee Canty, as well as Donna Brothers and Caton Bradar, for that matter. So watching them and knowing that I wasn't ever really good in math and sciences, English and history and public speaking were more my fortes when I started into college. And it wasn't, something as far as broadcasting was concerned that I automatically knew when I graduated high school that I wanted to go into. It was more kind of, well, let me just go into college, take all my gen ed and see what fits. And a gen ed is public speaking. And I fell in love with it. And then rolling that into broadcasting and journalism. And so I found that I really felt confident in doing it. And then obviously talking about horses and racing, it was just a natural fit. And when I graduated college, I made a reel and a tape and resume and sent it out to every track in the country, and found myself very fortunate, and TVG and the other HRTV at the time, and found myself very fortunate that the New York Racing Association were the ones who contacted me with the most interest. And because for the most part, year in and year out, it is the highest level of racing that we have in the country. So, and they were looking for someone to be in the paddock, to judge horses and give analysis based on physicality. And that's something that came very, very naturally to me. So it was just a perfect fit. And I know I've gotten fortunate, but I've also worked really hard at it. And it wasn't, the horses were a natural factor for me, but the broadcasting, I had to learn. And it was just about the reps and overall feeling comfortable with yourself.
You know, it's funny. I have a friend who's in standardbred racing, and the same thing happened with him. He actually went to the reading teacher and he said, honestly, I don't really need to learn how to read anything except the race program. He was in like 5th grade.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't need to know. So Marina, you're in a very unique position because you are actually the only female that's 4-star rated and an Olympic level course designer. So can you kind of explain to us how you got interested in that and who were your influences?
Well, it's a little bit like Maggie. I grew up in a family's farm, so I had the chance to be surrounded of animals and nature, and I had the opportunity to ride a horse. And when I was 17, I went to Europe, where I had incredible experience to ride with Nelson Pessoa. That was, and for me, still one of the best riders in the world. And at that time, I learned a little bit more about all the sport, not just ride a horse. I understood a little bit how it works, all the industry, right? Everything that it's around on the background or on the top level of the riders, all the grooms, the truck, and everything that I never thought here in Brazil before. But, something happened. I never thought in my life that one day I become a course designer. As Maggie said, it became natural. It fit like something that just happened. I had my son when I was 25. And after that, I wouldn't like to ride anymore. And but I love the horses. I love the horse show. I love to be in the field. And I start to walk a little bit to visit the course designers and just come. Like, if you ask me when you decided, I just decided after my baby was born, and I start to be in the field and understand a little bit that I could do something for the riders that I still can learn in every day. So I think it's happened like that.
Mm. And Marina, what were the biggest challenges that you had to overcome in order to start a career in course design?
Well, as you know, I live in Brazil, so I'm very far away for the top level. And for me, I think it was very hard to follow all the pathways to be international course designer. And it was a long way, not on the time, not too long, but regarding all the distance that I had to go Brazil to Europe or Brazil to North America, South America, and everywhere. The costs of every time that you learn something, we have to go by yourself. Nobody can put money for your learning, so you have to learn. So this was something that was hard to leaving my family. So as I said, I had a baby at the time, a son, and every time that I had to travel and leave my son home with my husband or my family, it was hard. So, so I think the hardest part for me, the challenge was to leave my family behind me.
Yeah. And that must have been really difficult to try and say, I have to invest in myself and I have to come up with the money in order to travel around the world and learn. And because so much of course designing isn't just getting a job and designing the course, you have to assist others for a long time, right?
Yes, usually if you follow the pathway, you have to use you ride before, and you have to be assistant for many years for many shows. And to be international, you should go to the international shows. So always I had to go to Europe or United States. Otherwise, I'm going to be just in my country, and this is not where you learn. So invest in yourself is something that's very special and very important.
Yeah. What kind of fears did you face? What were you scared of in doing that, and how did you get past it?
Well, I don't know. I think my fear was couldn't arrive on my goals. I like to have some goals, and I like to reach them. And if I don't reach it, for me, it's very hard. So this is something that maybe it was scaring me.
Yeah. And Maggie, were there challenges that you had to overcome, maybe more specifically in the broadcasting career?
For me, challenges as far as getting into the position, there really wasn't that many. I mean, like I said, I kind of hit a flyer, and luckily somebody that I wanted to work for caught it. Yeah. My biggest hurdle, and still, as I mentioned, is dealing with connections, dealing with people who might not like what I have to say. And when I first started, there were several horsemen that, I mean, were not very nice to me and tried to get me fired. And luckily, as I was mentioning, I have a great support system as far as the people I work with, as far as the people I work for. So they've always had my back. They've always, been behind me. And I mean, that's probably the biggest challenge that I've had. Just, people kind of wanting to stand in your way, but you persevere through it.
Do you think that was because you were new, or because you were a woman, or because of both?
A bunch of it. It was probably a culmination of things. Being a young woman, I started with Naira when I was 24. So that's relatively young. But I think, too, I have consistently, and I still do, I go to work in the morning. I get on horses in the morning. I'm on the pony. So over time, they saw me doing that, and they knew that I had the knowledge and I had the experience. And I think, too, maybe being a woman, they feel as though they can push you around a little bit and try to intimidate you. But unfortunately, that's what it is. What it is. And maybe if I was a man, they wouldn't have been so brazen and so bullish about it. But so I think it was a combination of both those things. Yeah.
And was there anything that you were afraid of to do, or anything you had to work past in the start?
Just like, I'm always an honest person. I probably, wear my heart on my sleeve a little too much, and to a fault, I guess you could say. And so finding ways to be critical without sounding too harsh was something that I really, I had to work on, just to kind of assuage that, people being offended, or people being, not pleased with what I had to say. So there's always that. And sometimes working with strong personalities, as you tend to on TV broadcasts, you learn how to deal with those people a little bit more. I am a hard person to offend, so that's a bit of a feather in my cap. But I could see where other people might be in the position I am, and working with those strong personalities, that you might feel as though you've been, downtrodden on, or don't really have a voice. But that's nothing that I've ever felt or experienced.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like you had to edit yourself?
Oh yeah, plenty. But I've learned how to achieve a happy medium with being honest, parlaying what I want to say, but not, keeping it PG, I guess, like a better way to put it.
Right.
And Maggie, do you think that that's the most difficult part of your job, or is there something else that's really difficult?
That I would say was at first. Now it's time management is the biggest challenge because, like Marina, I have 2 kids. I have 2 young girls. And I have a husband that has a business too that I like to try to stay involved with as a trainer that he is. So the time management is probably the biggest challenge that is thrown my way daily.
And then they're probably going to ride ponies, and then it's going to be even harder, right?
Well, see, so I did this reverse psychology thing with my first one. I got her a pony. We got her a pony before she was even 1, and it's a mini, and she wasn't completely broke, and she's pretty difficult to ride. So I think Grace has been like, I just like to pet them. I'll be your groomer. So it may be the second one's probably going to be the one that wants to ride, and that will take up a lot of my time as well.
Yeah. And Marina, what do you think is the most difficult part of your job?
For me, it was very hard to be away from home, that I said before, but I feel that every time I am in transit, like if I go somewhere, it likes 24 hours since I leave home and I arrive at the hotel, or leaving the hotel and coming home. So this is the hardest part for me, and it was difficult at the beginning. It's like always at the hotel, always at the airport. I feel that I don't have routine with my family, with the gym. I like to do it at the gym. And now I've become older and I feel that I need more gym and I have less time. So it's like a mix of like in between what I'm doing, what I did, what I have to do, This is organize the time for everything.
I found it really hard after COVID because I was home. I travel a lot for work also. And I've really found it hard to get back into the routine of and balancing it because I had such a good routine during COVID. And now I'm back on the road, hotel gyms, trying to figure it all out. And I really struggled the first couple of months. I mean, now I'm back into a pretty good routine, but it's hard.
Yeah. It's like, for me, it's the same. Last year, I haven't traveled. So it was amazing to be home for 1 year. It never happened to me since I was 17, I think. Every weekend at home, it was amazing.
Same here. Yeah.
Maybe sometime we need a break.
Yeah. It does make you think that, right? Of maybe cutting back and adding that back into your life.
Yep.
Marina, what do you love most about your job in the course designing?
Well, what I love is to learn with everybody. Like I live in different cultures because we live in different, I work in different countries, different continents, different level. So for me, this is really nice because we learn every day. Every course that you build, we have a different result. And with that, we have a new challenge for the next week. And you bring for each week some new knowledge that you bring to another week, to the next one. Mm-hmm. And it makes me better as a person, as a woman. And so I love the sport and be in between the sport and know how the kids they develop. It's amazing. For me, it's something that's very special.
And am I right that you speak 4 languages?
Yes, my second language is French. Okay. And then Portuguese is my language. And then French is my second. Then Spanish and English. It's not the good one, but I'm trying to.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's amazing.
I think your English is better than any other language that I try to speak.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
And Maggie, obviously you grew up in the industry and horses have always been a part of your life, but what do you think you love most about your job?
I mean, it sounds like the obvious and kind of, trite type of answer, but being around the horses is what I love most. There was a time when I actually interviewed with TVG, but the bulk of the work was going to be done in a studio. And that was just, no thanks. I like being, I'm like the only one, like as far as our team, that doesn't mind being out when it's like 20 degrees. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's so cold. We have to be inside. I'm like, nah, I'd much rather be out with the horses. They're there and going out in the mornings, still being able to do that is an essential part of my life. So I think that's just the best part of it, is just being able to be around the horses all the time. I get to go to work and look at horses. I mean, that's like a dream job.
Yeah, it is pretty great.
Are you in New York? Are you in New York right now?
Yes, in New York. This is home base. This is where we'll be, other than, the 2 months up in Saratoga, still New York. But I do get to travel a little bit more during the winter, as we'll do shows from Oaklawn. So I actually went to Arkansas for the first time 3 times over this past year. So looking forward to doing that though again.
Okay, so here's the difference. This girl in a fleece in New York, not a winter person. That girl in a long sleeve t-shirt loves the winter.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I love it, but I don't mind it. Yeah. We were actually, as Marina in Brazil, my husband and I were just in Uruguay. So, and it was lovely there. So having a little bit of a into winter tan, which will only last 2 more days, has been a treat.
And Maggie, do you still ride in the mornings, you said?
I try to with the girls. It's not easy, but when my mom is here helping me, and again, incredibly fortunate to have my mom as my babysitter. That half of the week that she's here, she can be with them in the morning, and I go out. I have a horse that my husband used to train that we actually, I don't want to say rescued, but got back. He was running at Penn National. And although I think being a track pony is probably the least thing he's suited to for after the races, he's going to have to live through it, because Long Island is not a very, you can't be frugal as far as boarding a horse. So yeah. So he lives at the barn and I ride him in the morning, even though, like I said, he will be much better when he gets off the racetrack.
So Maggie, are there any challenges that you had that you hope to see disappear in the future for other women looking to get into the same kind of industry line of work that you're in? Well,
so I mean, yes and no. There hasn't been a challenge, at least from my perspective. And I hate to keep harping on the fact that I've been fortunate in this industry, but I know that I have, because my father was a trainer and I married a trainer as well. And 2, I've always, at least since I moved out of Maryland, so I was a little bit protected from people being, I don't know, just not respecting me. And I always had that respect in Maryland. And then when I came here, I had that job. So people knew me and they respected me. But I do feel as though that a lot of times women coming into the racetrack industry will find that there are times when they aren't treated equally and they aren't treated as fairly, and they're looked more upon as objects than people who have a legitimate position within the industry. So I know that's a hurdle and something that we need to kind of overcome. But I feel as though if you can persevere, if you can stay true to yourself, not be distracted, not be afraid to fail sometimes, because a lot of times the biggest thing holding you back is fear. I mean, Roosevelt, and I always think about that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And I think that's a really good thing to always remember in life, is don't be afraid to take risks, because oftentimes you will be rewarded. And by taking that risk, you gain that much more.
Yeah, for sure. And Marina, how about for you? Do you think that there's any challenges that you wish that women didn't have for the future to make it easier to do what you do?
Well, I agree with Maggie because I also was lucky with everybody that I work with. But of course, we have a challenge because when we start in the male world, we have to try to be not intimidated. So they try to do it because it's like they are, not because they are trying to push us, but I think it's the world is still a little bit in that way. Mm-hmm. So we have to be more confident. We have to show them that we have the knowledge enough to run our job. So show that you are very organized, that you're competent, and you can manage the people. Because I think we, as a woman, we know how to manage the people better than the men. So we can use this by our side. We know how to go everywhere, how to be like if you work with the kids or if you work with the groom or the staff or even the owner. I think you have to show them that you need to be respected.
Yeah. And I think that, in the equine industry as a whole, I feel like we've had this conversation a lot, Jen and I, and other women that we brought on, that, it's funny how there's so many women involved in the equine industry, but there's so many men that end up being at the top. And like, what is that? What can we pinpoint that we can all work on as women to make it so that there'll be more women at the top? And I think you're right. Like, I think it's a confidence thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's the number one thing is confidence and not letting the static, the noise get in your way.
Mm-hmm. And the other side, I think it's hard for a woman to be on this job because, as I said before, we have to travel a lot, we have to leave the family behind us. So you have to ask yourself, this is what you really want to do. Mm-hmm. This is because then once you start, you can go, okay, every time you can go back, but it's nice to know before you start your goals and prepare your life in this way. I love what I do. But it's not easy. Even for a man, it's not easy.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot to sacrifice when you're traveling. I mean, how many weeks out of the year do you have to travel if you're at a top level course designer? I mean, it's at least half the year, if not, 30, 35 weeks out of the year. I think that's a big sacrifice for women who want to be with their families too. And Marina, do you think it's hard for women to get into course designing specifically? I mean, I know we've talked about what the challenges are, but do you think it's open for women as well to pursue that field?
I think it's very open. Even now, I think more and more we have women coming to this job. Mm-hmm. And I never thought from anyone like a rider or owner that because I was woman, I was not charged for that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's open. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice to be a course designer if you don't want to ride anymore, and you need more and more course designer because the industry is coming bigger and bigger. So, and as you said, it's impossible to work like 39 weeks a year. Yeah, you don't have the imagination. So, I think you do it's very hard. No imagination. Yeah.
How do you come up with all those courses week after week after week?
Yeah. So it starts to be a little bit the same. And I think now the riders, they want different course designers. So they ask for that. So this is an open position. So very open.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, it is. Yep. And more for the American. Because at the beginning, we didn't have many North American male or female that want to be course designer. Now they are looking that I have a lot of opportunities to be. So I can, before they just do hunters, And now we see a lot trying to go FEI, the pathway of jumping FEI. So it's good. It's good to see this.
When you go to places, you basically have to deal with whatever jumps they give you, or do you actually ahead of time kind of know what you want and you can build it, have it available to you when you get there?
Well, when you arrive at the show, we use what they have, what's available in place. Just like Pan American Games, South American Games, World Cup. So that one's a little bit special. So then you can prepare like a year before, then you send them the draw, what you want for the triple combination, for the double combination, what kind of the fillers you will want. So it's very, very different, very special events that you have that. Otherwise, it's just... And Europe and United States are also very different. In Europe, they gave us a lot of material. So sometimes we change the materials, the first class for the second class. United States is a little bit like we don't change a lot the course during the day because it's like business very fast and you don't have many different material. We just have that. It's different ways to see the sport.
Yeah. I think usually in America, they're just they have so many trips to get in the ring. You don't have time to swap out all the jumps from class to class.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Maggie, do you think there's any difference between men and women trying to get jobs in your industry, or any particular hurdles that may block women or give them reservations?
Age is a problem, I think, for women, whereas with men, it's not. I mean, you're always like, obviously when you first break in, you're trying to prove that you're not just a pretty face for people to look at, that you actually know what you're talking about, that you've worked just as hard, if not harder, than the men at what you're trying to do, whether it be an analyst on form or an analyst as far as horse's appearance, with regards to what I do. And then two, how many, Donna and Kaiten are really the only ones that are of a certain age that are still on. So I think you're always trying to stay relevant. And at some point you do have to recognize the fact, and maybe it's not right, but you have to recognize the fact that you have to maintain a certain physical appearance. Whereas the men, it's not quite as required, or I don't think they feel the pressure that we do.
Yeah. That's interesting. And well, I didn't even think about that, but I think that's pretty common in any job where, your appearance is part of it. Right. And, wow.
How do you change so fast? She's like Wonder Woman.
Luckily, I'm really sad he's retiring, but the paddock judge, who has been the paddock judge, I've been at NIR 11 years. I guess he's been it for 10 years. Pete Fitzgerald, he's so great. And he lets me use his paddock office, at Belmont or Saratoga. It's right there at the end of the saddling stalls. And I run in there and we lock the door, we pull the shades, we change really quick. They have my pony waiting for me, and then away I go. So I have it down to a science. Sometimes, like, if there's not enough time, I'll change my bottom half and I'll put my breeches and my boots on and still have my dress over. And then as soon as I do a paddock report, I run in. And it is a lot because you have to put on like a shirt, the vest, and something over the vest too, along with the helmet. So I have it down though, after doing it for 4 or 5 years now.
Do you have to go back and forth, or do you just start out in the paddock and then you're on a horse and that's it?
So if it's the races that I'm doing the horse, then I used to try to take my helmet off and redo my hair for each time, but now I'm just I just leave my helmet on. I'm over it. So, but then sometimes I come back and there'll be a couple other races where I'm not out there on the pony, and I will change back into address and stuff. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
In the mornings, do you go out and I know you said you work horses, but do you also kind of watch workouts of other horses that you know are going to be racing soon so that you get your information? Because I mean, listening to you, it feels like you really know everybody, all the horses on the track all the time.
Well, to be fair, XBTV has done a great job of posting many workouts. But yes, I do. Like I said, I have Xandar, who I will sit there and watch workouts on as well. So there's that. I used to be able to do that a bit more prior to children. With children, like I said, they do take up a lot of your time, especially at this age. It's 2 and 5 or almost 2 and 5 at the moment. So they have me busy, but yes, I do pay attention to other people's horses too out on the racetrack and how they're training.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Marina, I wanted to ask you, do you watch show jumping often and watch courses and stuff like that?
Less than I should do. Sometimes when I'm home, I really want to relax and I don't watch a lot of shows. But I like to watch like the big events like World Cup, WEG, Olympic Games, and like some special shows in Europe. But I'm not really like watch every weekend. No, I'm not.
Yeah. Do you think that helps you when you can see what other designers are doing, or do you like it better where you stay fresh and come up with it on your own?
I think I prefer to stay fresh because when you look a lot at other course designer, you try to do something that looks like someone that's not you. So I think all the course designer has your own talent, your own feelings. And what I like is talk more with the riders. I love have a good conversation with the top level riders, not talking about my course. Sometimes I like to ask them before they start to jump, or sometimes I just would like to talk something about course designers. How do you training? What do you wait? What do you expect for a good course? So it's nice when you talk a little bit, not about our course, but in general about the sport. So I learn a lot with that.
Cool. Yeah. So Maggie, is there any certain steps that you've taken in order to further your career?
To further I have just been able to, there's the one thing of seeing like a voice coach and using him and using that. And two, I've always just tried to take on as much work as I possibly could. And maybe now 10, 11 years into it, I've become a little bit more selective, but I just think that getting as much experience as possible, and at times early on doing it for free, but still you get that wealth with the experience that you gain and the repetition. And just so I think that's something that I've done consistently throughout my career, to try to be better and to try to stay relevant. And mentioning the travel, I think actually traveling has helped me, being able to go to different racetracks and obviously working with other people, but seeing horses from different jurisdictions and just very specifically, maybe those horses circle back and are in New York. And that provides a little bit more insight for me from the day-to-day standpoint of looking at these horses in the paddock. But like I said, just seizing every opportunity that I think could be a positive one and trying to do it at the best of my ability has been a major part of building my career, of taking the next steps.
And Marina, how about you? Have you taken any certain steps to further your career?
Yeah, I think, again, like Maggie, I think we have to listen to the voice of someone. I like to have a coach that helped me a lot to get my steps. Work hard. There's nothing that better than work hard and be in all the shows that you can to get experience. And I think you have to be involved with all the organization, not in my case, just the course designer. We have to learn a little bit with the vet, with the coach, with the the trainers, with the riders. I think you have so many things that you can learn around, like even with the office people, the breeders and everything. So I think we have to learn a little bit of everything that involved that. Because we have to learn about the footing. We have to know if you put horse, what's going to happen with the horse, so the vet can help you a little bit. Oh, after this class, the horse was very tired. So this is good or this is not good. You have to know if you push a lot or not. So I think you have to understand a little bit everything that happens in the horse show, and I try to do that. And observe. We have to observe other course designers, the shows, and wow, I think this is what did my career go up.
Yeah.
And never, okay.
And are there very specific criteria you have to meet as you go up the levels, like, you're level 2 course designer, level 3, like what did it take to get to that level 4 for you?
Well, you can never give up. I let you know that sometimes I thought to give up. Like they changed a little bit the pathway to level 4 after Brazil Olympic Games. And it was so hard to try. Before it was just to be assistant. And when I was there, it was like I had to build 14 shows, 3, 4, 5 stars, South American or North American, 2 Nations Cup. So it's not easy to build, because it's not very easy to be invited to build that shows. Because if you're not yet level 4, how they can hire you to build that? You have to show them that you can do it. So as I told you before, I was lucky with all the owners of the shows that put me there, that believed in me, trusted me. And so you can give up. Sometimes I thought it's impossible. And now they are trying again to change a little bit the pathway, to give more assistance and not build all those. Because when you saw the schedule of the North America, you don't have all these shows to, like, 3 course designer do it.
Right.
So sometimes it's hard, but not because I'm woman. It's hard because it's hard.
Yeah. For anyone trying to do it,
anyone.
I'm sure. Yeah. Is there specific advice you would give just to women who want to further their careers?
Yeah, this is what I not give up, and also be yourself. I think you have to be yourself, to trust you, to be organized, to observe the result, the analyze, how do you say?
Analysis, yeah.
Analysis.
Or analyze, yeah.
Yeah, what you did before, what you have to do next, and self-analyze everything that you do. And today I can see that if it was not level 3 or level 4 before, today I can let you know that it was right. I was not prepared for that. And always we think that we are prepared, but we're not. So good that you have time to arrive there. And when you do a show that you always want to do, you're going to do it very well. You're going to be prepared for that. So I think everything arrived in my life on the right time. So it was a long way, it should be. So this is what I say, never give up. The thing's going to happen.
Yeah. And Maggie, is there advice that you have that's specific to your field?
As we kind of mentioned before, confidence is really key. And doubting yourself, you're going to doubt, you're going to trip yourself with what you're saying. You're not going to relay yourself in that confident demeanor, and that people are going with what you say. I mean, people are taking your analysis and putting their money on it. So you have to be very confident in what you're saying. And to echoing what Marina said as well. It's just the hard work, just doing it day in, day out, staying true to what you, and I mean, I think as far as advice is concerned, like I said too, don't be afraid to take risks. You can't be afraid to be wrong, at least in my line, because we're kind of like weathermen. At the end of the day, we're going to be wrong sometimes. So,
those horses don't always do what you want them to do.
They always make you humble. And two, you got to be able to have a thick skin. People are going to, there's some social media is brilliant and the devil at the same time. So people are, it's a platform for public opinion, which people can not show their face. So it's, the cowardly way to have an opinion, but you have to be able to take it and you can't really let it affect you too. Mm-hmm. So having a thick skin, being confident, and hard work.
That sounds like a pretty good formula no matter what industry
you're doing. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so at the end of our conversation, we always do the same rapid fire questions for each episode. So Jen usually starts with the first question.
Yeah. So Marina, we'll start with you. What is one action that women can take to make a big difference in their lives?
I think we can do just one question.
Yeah.
Just one.
Yes.
Just
one action.
Word.
One action. Yep.
Action. I think we do. How I can say? We can do more than one thing at the same time. So the woman can do one more thing at the same time. So this is really good. Make a difference.
Multitasking.
Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't find this word. Sorry.
Yep.
Very right about that.
Yeah.
Learn how to multitask. That is very, very important.
Yeah. And Maggie, how about you? What is one action that women can take to make a big difference in their lives?
Maintain relationships. Don't forget where you came from. Always be humble too. I think is very important. So, always harvesting and culminating relationships with people, I think is very important.
Mm-hmm. And Marina, what is the best habit that keeps you motivated personally?
I always have a goal and I study and plan to reach this goal. I need a goal every time.
Yeah. And Maggie, how about you? What's your best habit that keeps you motivated?
Waking up early. It's something I've always done with having to gallop. So sometimes I sleep in a little bit now, but waking up early, starting your day, and just knowing what you have to accomplish and giving yourself the most amount of time available to do so.
What time do you wake up?
Sometimes it's 4:30, and then sometimes I let my 4-year-old wake me up, which is usually like 6. But
yeah,
that's rough.
Yeah. Maggie, what's your favorite horse movie?
Casey Shadow.
Oh, yes, yes.
I don't know.
You're the first person to say that, and yes. 100%.
It's my favorite. It's old, but I feel like it's definitely racing. But I feel it's besides people trying to poison the horses, that does not happen. But I feel like as far as characters are concerned, it's the most truest to what the racetrack's like.
Yeah.
What's the name of the movie?
Casey's Shadow.
Casey Shadow. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
And Marina, what's your favorite horse movie?
It's not the movie, but the series. I love Heartland. Even though that's not real, I could watch all kind of horses sports. So I like it. It was like very, very easygoing. So I like it.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Cool.
And mine, Casey Shadow, is actually loosely based on Randy Romero. Of his life and his father.
Really?
So there's a little bit of true story factor to it.
I'm going to play it.
Yep. Yeah. Google it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a family favorite of my family's.
Oh, cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Same here. Same here.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today and talking about, how you've persevered and succeeded in your industries and really broken that ceiling. And I think you're both really someone that others can look up to in the industry. And we really love that you came and talked to us today.
Well, thank you so much. And it was really an honor to be on with Marina as well. And I love the fact that you guys have taken two people from, although we're both equestrian, totally different worlds for lack of a better way to put it. And, we found so many common threads throughout.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was lovely. I love it too. The same idea to understand a little bit, to learn a little bit more. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we love about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I was really excited to get to talk to Maggie today and Marina, but I am like a huge fan. Like I was kind of fangirling over Maggie because I really do watch a lot of racing and thoroughbred racing. And I just think she's pretty outstanding in what she does and how she does it. So I was glad that she was able to make it on as a guest today. That's really kind of a male dominated field, is commentating, and even just like reading the race program and being an analyst for racing. She does like a really excellent job.
Yeah. I think even in the racing industry as a whole, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a lot of female trainers and people in the top of that industry.
No, not at all. And she's one of the best that I've seen as far as her analysis. And she's very honest in it. And she really knows her stuff. She knows her horses. She knows about horses. And it's funny that Marina was talking about how much she needed to know for her job and talking to all the parts. And I feel like that's the same thing with like Maggie, because she's got to know all the parts also,
Right. Yeah, you can't just show up and talk intelligently if you haven't studied and know everything that goes into bringing these horses to the track. Or like Marina said, knowing what the footing is like and what kind of horses are there and who the riders are. And I think horse designers have one of the hardest jobs at a horse show. And they're usually the ones that get maligned first if something.
Oh, I know. Like earlier this year, I went to the Hampton Classic and they had one day on the Grand Prix field, and I showed up the next day and they had ripped up the entire Grand Prix field.
Yes. Yeah. There was just something not right with the grass, and they made it into a sand ring overnight. Can you imagine? Like you have a course set for a certain type of huge field, and then boom, it's a sand ring the next day.
It was amazing. I was watching the trucks because I was there that Monday, and I was watching the trucks take it. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So the course designers must be like, oh wow, like that's pretty big change.
It boggles my mind of how they can just come up with new ideas and new tracks every week. And I think it's really cool how she was able to explain everything that goes into it. And I think it's a really hard job to not only move up the levels, but to maintain over the years, because you have to keep doing it in order to get invited and get yourself known and have other horse show organizers hire you. And like she said, what it took to get to that top level was a lot of sacrifice and a lot of time and hard work. And I know a lot of people really love the way that she designs, and she knows horses, and she was a rider and she competed. So that really brings a lot to it. And I think it's really cool to see her name among those top course designers. I think there's only like 36 in the world that are level 4.
Wow.
And she's the only woman.
Dang, that's amazing. That's quite an accomplishment, really.
It really is.
Yeah.
And she's been doing it for a long time. And I think it's so cool to see her accomplish that.
Yeah. And like you said, both of them have to kind of stay relevant in their field, right? It takes a lot to stay relevant.
It does. And I think, I don't know about racing, but in show jumping, like things are changing so quickly, I feel like. And even from 10 years ago, course design is so different. And the materials that they use and the way the horses go, and, how technical and delicate everything is now has changed so much from the past. And like you said, you have to know what's going on and be able to adjust the way that you do your work. But I think that lends itself to any industry that you're in. If you really want to be a part of it and you want to stay a part of it, you have to be immersed and be following it and know what's happening and work hard to keep yourself involved.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I see it in my own career, right? Veterinary medicine is constantly changing and evolving. Regenerative medicine is a big part of it. And so we are constantly getting products, new products, changing out with old products. And so learning and knowing what they're used for, but also what direction it's going in is definitely something that I have to stay up on. And I think I feel like I have a pretty good leg up on that, being involved with riding and racing, and just, it's kind of my life. So that helps me, but I could understand I think that's what makes me a good salesperson too, because I'm being honest. I'm going to be honest about it because I use it.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing in what I do too. And the way that we have to stay on top of new technologies or new ways to get information across. Obviously, social media has completely changed the landscape of what I do. 15 years ago, we were barely starting Facebook pages. What it is now, it's definitely changed, and staying on top of that is a major part of what I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, another awesome conversation, and
loved it.
We will see who we can get here next.
Yeah. Find the links to today's guest and the show notes at www.eqbusinesswomen.com. Equestrian B2B is out twice a month on the 1st and the 15th.
Find out more about Equestrian Businesswomen. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Find Equestrian B2B wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a review. You can have all 20 plus shows of the Horse Radio Network with you wherever you go with our free app for iPhone and Android. Go to your app store and search Horse Radio Network.
Now go break the ceiling.